I rise to support this motion and to congratulate the Leader of Majority and Leader of Minority for bringing a bipartisan motion of this nature. Indeed, this is the right time to discuss the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, let me first start by sending my condolences and the delegation that I lead to the 39 families whose children died in the last 1 week. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has told us that 36 were injured, 627 young people were arrested, and 32 have disappeared. Mr. Speaker, disappearances and extrajudicial killings have returned to this country, despite the promises that were made during the campaigns. I also wish to sympathize with the traders who have lost their property across the nation. Mr. Speaker, even though not related, allow me to take this opportunity to send my condolences also to the family of the late Joe Barage Wanjui. Those who know Joe Wanjui, he was a chancellor at the University of Nairobi. He is a foremost businessman in this country. And I send condolences because, Mr. Speaker, Joe Wanjui gave me an opportunity to join the financial services world. When I left the university, he never cared about my last name. He cared about my ability to serve. And Mr. Speaker, may his soul rest in peace, and we shall remember his sophisticated humility, which I have struggled to emulate. Mr. Speaker, last week when I was in church, the young people told me when I come to this house, I must read out Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. The Gen Zs are not fighting against flesh and blood. Theirs is a fight against principalities and powers, rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places. Gen Zs don't want to kill anybody, even though we are killing them. We have snipers in this building to kill our young people. They are not fighting flesh and blood, Mr. Speaker. It is about wickedness in high places, parliament, state house, city hall, governor's premises, across the nation. It is wickedness in high places that the Gen Zs are fighting against. It was not even the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, that was the problem. The finance bill was a catalyst. All this started when we decided to force on Kenyans a housing law. In fact, it's a good thing that those young people came to parliament, because we are the ones who passed a housing law and told the young people they can go to hell if they want. We are the ones who passed a health law, which nobody understands today. Mr. Speaker, those people who work for the National Health Insurance Fund, they have no certainty. They don't know whether they have a job. Leave alone a job, they don't even know whether they have a health cover. And yet they work for the National Health Insurance Fund. It was this parliament that brought about that kind of wickedness, that many of our people today do not have health cover. Today, children in schools do not have health cover, something that we thought would be a constitutional guarantee. It was taken away, and this parliament kept quiet about it. Mr. Speaker, the Gen Zs are fighting about the neo-colonialism that we are seeing today. When Kenyans are complaining about their government, the first person to respond to us is the American ambassador in PowerPoint presentations, telling us how our elections are free and fair, telling us how our president has been sent from God, and telling us that we are making the right decisions, that we should persevere. Gen Zs are tired of that neo-colonialism and double standards. Someone told to me that if those protests were about the rights of persons of the LGBTQ community, Mr. Speaker, and 39 people were dead, the Western world would have frozen aid, they would have frozen external assistance to Kenya. Are the lives of gays and lesbians more important than the lives of the 39 that we have talked about? We saw what happened in our neighboring country, Uganda. They came up with laws that limited the rights and freedoms of persons of that orientation. And Uganda has now been denied funding. The Speaker of the Assembly in Uganda is being hounded out of office. She cannot even travel, Mr. Speaker. We do not want the double standards of neo-colonialists, and we pray that the Gen Zs in America will do the right thing. Mr. Speaker, the arrogance that we have displayed as a leadership, the tribalism that we have been expressing and calling it shareholding. Shareholding is nothing when it comes to national politics. It is pure tribalism. It is ethnic jingoism. It is ethnic chauvinism. Mr. Speaker, we are talking here with Senator Omtata, asking ourselves, why do you need a voter's card when you already have a national ID? And that has been the system in this country, to disenfranchise certain parts of this country. We have been around through electoral processes, and we know that the registration of voters is a first step for rigging of elections. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the majority and minority leaders that in that motion, that we should push to ensure that in this country, once you have a national ID card, then you can automatically become a voter. Because I've heard the arrogant politicians, those who voted yes to the finance bill last week, saying that Gen Zs will not take them anywhere because, after all, they are not registered as voters. Once you are a citizen, you've got a right to vote. And we should not introduce additional bureaucracies in the name of registration of voters. The last time we did that exercise, this country spent 7 billion Kenya shillings on biometric voter registration equipment. Those are the areas where we could make savings. If we could take that 7 billion that I am sure that the IBC is going to ask for another round of voter registration, that amount of money can take care of the doctors, can take care of the junior secondary school teachers. Mr. Speaker, we have annoyed the Gen Zs by our fake religious fervor. The religious fundamentalism that is in this country, Mr. Speaker, where we go to churches, and then we say that the persons we vanquished are children of a lesser God, that the victors are the ones who pray to the true God. Today, Gen Zs have told us that the voice of the youth is a voice of God. Mr. Speaker, I've reflected and I've looked at what Wole Soyinka wrote. I think it was Soyinka who wrote The Trouble with Nigeria. And Soyinka said, it was Chinua Achebe. It was Achebe who did the Trouble with Nigeria. He said there is no problem with the Nigerian land, the Nigerian soil, the Nigerian air, the Nigerian water, the Nigerian seas and lakes. The trouble with Nigeria, as is the trouble with Kenya, is the failure of leadership. It is a cult of mediocrity. It is indiscipline and it is corruption. Mr. Speaker, ever since Achebe made those very, very interesting remarks more than 20, 30 years ago, Kenya has not learned a lesson. I am so happy about this revolution that our young people have brought upon us, because it is going to change the architecture of our politics. Before, the people who mattered were the leaders and owners of parties. Today, the true bosses are the youngsters, the Gen Zs, our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. Mr. Speaker, I heard the president say that he wants to set up certain committees to go around the country